So we're studying the sugya of Rav Huna here on Daf Ayin Beis Amid Beis of a katan harodef achar chavero v'nita latzilo b'nafsho, and the Gemara says kasavar rodef eno tzorech hasra loshna gadol loshna katan. And then we have the question of Rav Chizda Esvei Rav Chizda Rav Huna, and he quotes a Mishnah in Olos. And what does it say in the Mishnah? It says Yotza Rosho Ein Nogimbo. Once the fetus pops his head out, then we can't touch him. Lefi shein dochin nefesh b'nei nefesh. So my rodefu. Why is the ubar as he's born any different than a katan? So you'll tell me because he cannot receive a hasra, he's a newborn baby, but katan also doesn't receive a hasra. So you see that a rodef doesn't need a hasra. Shani hasam d'shmaya karad filei. The Gemara says that's different because this is all like a natural kind of situation. It's not a rodef situation. And this again makes a lot of sense if we assume that rodef has a chiv misa, but you can't say there's a chiv misa in this case because it's min hashmayim karad filei. I mean, that's the way of nature. But if you'll say that rodef is hatzolas hanirdaf, so what's mishamayim karad filei? That was the question that we left with yesterday. Now, another issue that we mentioned yesterday is the case of a katan harodef achar ha'erva. Is he to be put to death? So the question was, and we vacillated back and forth, whether there's a hatzolas hanirdaf here, in a case where her whole life is not in danger, or do we say that no, just to save her from gila arayis, that's also considered like pikuach nefesh? But if, on the other hand, if the din of a rodef is a punishment and it's a kind of chiv misa, then we could say the following: that this din of an onesh would not be chal on a katan. Again, in the case of a cut rodef, we will put him to death according to Rav Huna. So apparently, this case of a chiv misa is not to be equated with a classic case of chiv misa, because how could there be a chiv misa on a katan? So we're going to have to say that it's not a chiv misa b'toras onesh, but it's a separate chiv misa b'toras rodef. And that's why this chiv misa is chal even on a katan, so that should apply even in a case of a katan harodef achar ha'erev. All right. Nema Misayele. Let's try to prove Rav Huna that rodef does not need asra from a brisa. The brisa says rodef shaya rodef achar chaver lahargo. Omer lo. I guess anyone who sees the rodef says re'ei she Yisraelhu. You're running after a Jewish person who ben brisu. and he's part of the bris. You could imagine a Jew who is an apostate, or he gets baptized. So that's a different story. But here it's a ben bris. Vatorah Amra Shofech Dam Ha'adam Ba'adam Dam Yishafach. What does that mean? That Amra Torah Hatzel Damo Shel Zeh B'Damo Shel Zeh. If need be, and you have to save the nirdaf, you can spill the blood of the rodef. So as soon as the onlooker says those words to the rodef, is then we're allowed to kill the rodef. Now, normally in a case of hasra, you need what's called matir atzmo lemisa. The person who is warned has to make the following statement. He says, yeah, I know, and nevertheless, I'm going to go do it despite that. That's Kabbalah's hasra. He accepts upon himself hasra. Here, in this brisa, it seems that he doesn't have to accept upon himself the hasra. But immediately after he was warned, then he could be put to death. So this should support the shita of Rav Huna that you don't need asra. Because if Rodef needed asra, then he would require being mater atzmo lemisa, and here he's not requiring that. There's no Kabbalah's asra here. So apparently, if there's no Kabbalah's asra, then the assumption has to be that you're allowed to kill the Rodef even without asra. So Gemara rejects it. Gemara says, "Hahi, that brisa is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. He Sanya. We learned in the brisa, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Chaver Einot Tzarech Asra, Lefishlo Nitna Asra, Elavchen Ben Shogeg Lemezi." So the Gemara is suggesting now that Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda does not require a hasra, but that's in the case of chaver. How does the Gemara make the analogy from chaver to the case of rodef? So I guess what we're saying is that according to Rabbi Yosef, the whole purpose of the asra is to make sure that he's doing it b'mezid. But here, in the case of a rodef, there's no question that he's doing it b'mezid. But that's only according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. But the Chacham reject Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. And apparently they hold that even in the case of a chavra, you need asra. So in the case of a rodef, also we would require asra. It sounds like the Gemara is vacillating as to whether asra is a kind of clarification or it's a strict, absolute requirement. We're talking about a chiv misa. Let me read to you the Masifta. He says, "Kevan shetalmid chacham yodea ma muter ma osa v'vadei lo shogeg v'maisa v'lo osa came b'meiza b'chayim nisa v'abraisa shevia hasra b'li kabbalah zuhi zeu stam b'stam rodev shu amaoretz sheyesh lachshosh she'eni yodea ma muter u'ma osa." V'lachein tzarich lahasros bo k'dei sheyeda shedavar osa. Aval ein tzarich sheyikabel olav es asra. I don't see anybody explaining the Chachamim Shita here. He just writes, Omno L'das Chachamim, Ein Hetelaro Grodev B'li Asra. So the Chachamim, I think, are saying that Chaver Tzarech Asra. I wish he would have spelled that out. Which Gemara do you have, Steve? You have the same as I do, the Masifta? You don't have another Gemara, like an art scrolling.
What's the question again?
Now I'm trying to figure out. The Gemara is saying that this brisa is not a proof to Rav Huna because this brisa is to be attributed to Rav Yossi Rav Yehuda. But the Chachamim disagree with Rav Yossi Rav Yehuda. So I'm trying to figure out, what did the Chachamim hold? Rav Yossi is arguing that if a Chacham is violating an Avera, then he knows exactly what the law is. He knows everything. He knows what's awesome. And therefore, in Tzarech Asra. He's not a shogeg. He's amazing. But what do the Chachamim say? So I'm just filling in the blanks here. Again, I hope I'm not misleading you.
Right.
The Chacham hold that in every single case, it's an absolute ironclad contingency. There must be Asra. There's no Chiv Misa without Asra. And according to the Chachamim, then one could argue that Rodev cannot be killed without Asra. And when we say Asra, we mean not only to warn him, but he has to be Makabel Asra.
So is the Hasra needed only after the fact? If they bring him to Beis Din? If he doesn't follow through in killing him? And now, the perpetrator committed his act, and now we want to convict him. Then we're going to need Hasra?
I'm not sure what you mean that when we bring him to the courts. I mean, the Hasra is at the time right before he commits the crime.
Right. And then instead of, the person stopping him from committing the crime, he actually commits the crime.
And
now
then
we have to bring, now we have to bring him to Beis Din, and we're going to need Hasra at that point.
Well, I don't know what you mean we need Hasra. He violated the Hasra and he committed the crime.
No,
now
but if he was a Chacham and we didn't give him Hasra.
We did not give him Hasra.
We didn't give him Hasra.
Oh, you're going according to Rav Yossi. You're going according to Rav Yossi.
No, I'm talking.
Rav Yossi
say you still have to give him Hasra, because what happens if we have to bring him to court eventually? Even though he's a Chacham.
We'll bring him to court. We never gave him Hasra. We'll bring two witnesses, and basically after we can establish without any shadow of a doubt that he was guilty of that crime, he'll be punished. We don't need Hasra. That's Rabbi Yossi.
Oh, even for Beis Din, not just for the person who's going to stop him. I see. Okay.
So the person who's going to stop him does not have to give Hasra according to Rabbi Yossi, because he knows that this person is a
amazing.
Chaver. If he's a Chaver, he knows that it's prohibited. It's like for example, I think in American law, you have to read him the Fifth Amendment or something. You have to read him his rights. But in halacha, according to Rabbi Yossi, you don't have to read him his rights or whatever, because he's a chaver. He knows the law.
Yeah.
The Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Yossi, but the Gemara doesn't seem to quote the Chachamim here at all, does it? But one thing I can guarantee you, that the Chachamim hold that Hasra has a whole different purpose. It's not just to clarify that he knows very well that he's violating the law, because that wouldn't apply in the case of a Chaver. No, there's an absolute ironclad condition that there's no punishment without Hasra. It's almost as if the Hasra is going to upgrade the severity of his violation of his crime. Not only is he no good, low-down criminal, but he even heard the words of the Hasra. They told him that this is a Jewish person, blah, blah, and he went ahead and he did it. It's even a more intense, bold, brazen, act of a crime. And if Rodef is a Chiv Misa, then Rav Huna is not necessarily correct in waiving the requirement of Asra. We will require Asra in the case of a Rodef. And Asra means not only the Asra, but also the Kabbalah's Asra. But as I say, a lot is missing from the Gemara. We're filling in the blanks. I wish, it would be a lot more comfortable if somebody would say this outright. Let's go on. Toshma. We have another brisa, but this one is against Rav Huna. Till now, we were supporting Rav Huna. Rodef shayu rodef hachaver lahargov omar lo. somebody says to the Rodev, Re'eh Yisrael, Uben Brisu, V'Torah Omer Shofech Dama Adam V'Adam Dama Yishofech. Im Omar Yodea Anishu Ken. I hear you very well. I know exactly the law. Potter. In other words, just saying Yodea Shehu Ken, I know the law, and I know that I'm violating the law, and I'm about to engage in a criminal act. That's not enough. That's not a Kabbalah Sasra. He has to say Al Manas Kenani Osa, and then and only then he's Ichaya. Al Manas Kenani Osa means what I'm about to do now, I'm doing under the assumption that they're going to put me to death. So we're talking about a rodef, and yet we have to give him asra, and he's got to be makabel asra. He's got to be mater atzmo levisa. He's got to say almanas kenani osa. That's against Rav Huna. Lo tzricha dekoi betray ivri denara. That the one who's giving the asra and the rodef are standing on two sides of a river. There's a river between them. The lomotzi atzole. That the Masra has no possibility of saving the life of the Musra. By the time he gets across the river, the guy's going to be dead. So if I understand correctly, the law is that if you are observing a rodef, you're supposed to kill the rodef. But if he's on the other side of the river, you won't be able to kill him. So what obligation can you fulfill? You know, it's like, again, I hate to give this example, but let's say, you know, there was a terrorist attack, Rahman al-Islam. So they ask you, you know, what was the result? You know, how many people got killed? But then somebody's going to ask, did they get the terrorists? So here's a case where you can't save the people from dying because the murderer is on the other side of the river, but at least can you set up a situation where if we get a hold of the murderer, we'll be able to put him to death? And that's called Ma'ika. Ma'ika, he translates here as Ma'u ha'chiyuv ha'mutal al masra. What can we, at least in the worst case scenario, what can we demand of the masra? Which I think, if I understand correctly, he should set up the possibility that if we can get a hold of this killer and bring him into Bezdin, we'll be able to condemn him to death. And Beidina Bayasra, once we're going to be Machayvim in Bezdin, then Bezdin is the man, they're going to be able to know that the Eidim could testify that they saw this Redifa and that he was forewarned and he accepted the Asra. So this is not a contradiction to Rav Huna. If they were on the same side of the river, just kill him. Kill the Rodef. Save the Nirdaf. Forget about Asra. But in event that you cannot save the Nirdaf by killing the Rodef, because the Rodef is on the other side of the river, at least set up a possibility that if we get this guy to Bezdin, we'll be able to condemn him for a capital punishment. So what do? You give him Asra. So this brisa that requires Asra and a Kabbalas Asra is only in a case where they're on two sides of a river. But in a normal case, you can kill the Rodef, save the Nirdaf, and you don't need Asra. Sema, another alternative answer. Rav Huna could say the following: Ano diamri kitana de machteres. The Omer machtarto zui hasra. So Rav Huna says, I'm standing on the shoulders of a different Tana. And that Tana said, machtarto zui hasra. This Tana is outspoken about the fact that you don't need Asra in the case of Baba Machteres. And now I'm going to extrapolate that in every case of a Rodef, the Redif itself is like Asra. You save the Nirdaf by killing the Rodef, and the Rodef doesn't need Asra. So this sugya is very, very strange, because the Gemara is fighting against Rav Huna and trying to slug up any proof that you would support, that you would give to Rav Huna, name of Sayele. And then the Gemara is going to ask from a brisa on Rav Huna. So if we reject Rav Huna, so what does it mean? That you can't kill the Rodef without giving him Asra? Okay, fine, give him Asra. Now he has to be Mater Atzmo Lemisa. And if he doesn't, then we're going to let him kill the Nirdaf? How can we stand by idly and allow the Rodef to kill the Nirdaf simply because the Rodef refused to accept the Asra? He refused to say the words Almanas Kenan Yosim. I don't know. It's very difficult. And one last question. Can we maybe say the following, that there's the Nirdaf, and then there's a person, we'll call him the Masra, who's a spectator on the sidelines. He wants to save the Nirdaf. The Masra's life is not in danger. And he wants to jump into this situation and decide who's going to live and who's going to die. He's going to kill the Rodef to save the Nirdaf. So in that case, we might demand that as a third party, he's got to do what Bezdin would have done in order to kill this Rodev. They would have required a Asra plus a Mater Atzma Lemisa, Kabbalas Asra. As far as the Nirdaf himself is concerned, he's going to kill the Rodev, with or without Asra. He's going to save his life. I'm still not happy with it. I don't understand why killing the Rodev is contingent on a Asra and a Kabbalas Asra, according to that Mandion. And the Nirdaf will die. Again, if I want to be Balabatish, maybe I could say, who knows, maybe he's killing the Nirdaf because the Nirdaf, killed his closest relative. I don't know. He's not stabbed. What? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm missing. I feel like I'm missing a piece of the puzzle here. All right, we'll stop here. And I'll wish you a great day. Thank you so much. I don't know. I thought John is back, but I guess he's taking care of things. Call to.